When the Real McCoy opened here on Markham Road, the CN Tower wasn't even in existence. But after 53 years, the doors behind me are about to close for good.
There we go, guys. That's our bacon right here getting ready.
Whether it's sizzling up bacon or trimming steaks, George Mahale is always at work.
All of our product is always fresh. It's because of the volume also.
He's closed on Sundays. This past one, he was on track to put in a 16-hour day prepping for the week ahead. CityNews was invited to visit for a bit because customers have flocked here even more so since announcing in mid-November an end.
My daughters were telling me that it was, announce it earlier, and I really didn't want to. It was like that faint hope of maybe they're going to extend us a little while and just let it go.
George, who's 60 now, has been coming through these doors since he was a boy. His dad, Louis, along with two family members, bought out a bakery lease a decade after arriving here as immigrants.
Fast food was just the beginning. Most of the restaurants that were around all had seating with breakfast, lunch.
Borrowing the name from an old milk commercial, the menu in 1969 was simple.
Hamburgers, like a cheeseburger banquet, hot dogs, steak on a Kaiser, fish and chips, fries and rings, and that was it.
By 1986, George said business was going just okay, not great. He bought out one of the business partners, and the boy who started by peeling potatoes later became co-owner with Louis.
Pops was a champ. We lost Dad about 9 years ago. Sorry. He was a workaholic, but he was a good guy.
With a jolt of George's new ideas and an expanded menu to include souvlaki's, salads, fresh homemade burgers, business picked up. His recipe for a banquet burger, later called the Mojo, even won him a local radio contest. But pizzas became the other staple here. After refining the recipe with an expert named Angelo, in came Frida to help on that end.
Help costs money. And you're not making that kind of money in a small little restaurant stuff, right? So Mom came in and helped. But Mom's a champ. She's still around. She's playing with her garden every day.
Decades later, George says Scarborough has been key to his success.
Scarborough itself and this neighborhood has always been fantastic and stuff. Everyone's always taking care of themselves and looked out for themselves with kids.
A bit shy to boast, he's tried looking after it too, sponsoring kids' sports teams, making sure they got fed, and that many felt cared for, especially those having a tough time at home.
There were so many of them that slept in the restaurant because what was going on at home. But one thing we wanted to do stuff was I put myself in those shoes. No one wants that.
We asked customers to share what George and the Real McCoy has meant to them.
So I've been coming here for 30 plus years. George is like family.
We've been there since we were when we were first newlyweds, when we were expecting kids, when our kids were in the hospital. That place fed us.
As the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. The end here sooner than was hoped for, though. It's closing on Christmas Eve. George and his wife Sophie have to be out a week later. The plaza's getting torn down to make way for a condo.
Guys, we did the best with what we had. I tried my best. Thank you.
Outside George's business at Breamorton Plaza, new condo buildings are now just feet away from his front door.
The gentrification of Scarborough right now, this is just a product of it. Right? They're putting in all these huge towers, the rentals in the back.
Another building will be on the way. This commercial complex will likely be torn down next year. While he has to leave, George isn't ready to hang up the apron for good, fueled by passion, but also by financial realities.
If I had the business and sold it, that was like a pension for us in the future. But I'm losing out on that.
He says finding a new place, one that will likely be safe from demolition, that is somewhat affordable to operate, and has parking to support takeout, is proving tough to find, as is the financing.
To go somewhere else, it's still going to cost a fortune to open up. It's still going to cost $250,000 to open up at another location, and that's a lot. And that is a lot of money. So those problems, that's a problem that me and my wife have to sit down and discuss.
George's situation is not unique. Look around, and while many plazas are humming along, you start to see spots fading.
It's sad, but I feel it's become so common that we're expecting plazas to close, and it's just that we're holding our hearts for when is the time.
Sid Naidu is the co-founder of Scarborough Made, which documents the social aspects of Toronto's East End. He's been sounding the alarm about the loss of plazas like Breamorton.
The Eglinton Strip, we've seen a lot of plazas close because of that subway extension. In this case, with the Real McCoy, it's another development coming in, bringing housing, which is necessary too. But we always have to ask at what cost.
We spoke with George's councillor, Paul Ainsley, about the loss of the Real McCoy.
It's something that the neighborhood really appreciates. I certainly don't want to see them go.
In other parts of his ward, he said he's rallied communities to show developers the need for retail.
Made sure they understood, if this building goes in, you lose your variety store. So I got them involved. The condo owner has agreed have retail space.
When asked what can be done at City Hall, Ainsley calls for more business improvement areas in Scarborough to help with promotion. Councillor Shelley Carroll, Toronto's new Economic Development Committee chair, says commercial needs to be a priority.
Anytime you're building multiplex housing in the City of Toronto, if it's going to be multi-story, the main floor should have some retail opportunity in it. What's important is that it's usable. And so you really got to turn our mind to what do businesses need right now.
Meanwhile, regardless of what happens, George vows to open again after a small vacation somewhere warm. And if his plan comes together, he has this promise for customers.
It will be Scarborough. I know what's a Scarborough, I don't care. It's got to be one there. Then we'll worry about anywhere else if we do decide to expand. But the first store's got to be in Scarborough stuff, right? That's going to be our flagship. It has to be. And it might take some time, though.
For more on the Real McCoy's history and concerns facing small businesses, head to citynews.ca. In Scarborough, Nick Westoll, City News.